It's California Edition. My name is Brad Pomerance. We are joined by Adam Hill. He is a member of the Board of Supervisors in San Luis Obispo County. He is the only supervisor in the state with a nuclear power plant that's operating in his district, and that is Diablo Canyon. Of course, we know San Onofre is closing down. And so give us a sense for our viewers, the importance, arguably, of Diablo Canyon to this county. Then we'll talk about the states.
Yeah, well, to this county, it's of great importance economically, obviously. It provides about somewhere between 1,200 and 1,400 very well-paying jobs. There's a lot of folks who have different kinds of work in the construction trades when they have refueling outages and other infrastructure projects. There's a fair number of, well, the county probably gets about $10 million a year in revenues, the school district even more in terms of sales taxes. So
property taxes.
Property taxes, yeah. That actually, property taxes is the largest part of it. Yeah.
So when I was a kid, my aunt was involved in the No Nukes movement.
Right.
And so she would take me to No Nukes rallies.
Yeah.
Yet, ironically, my aunt has reevaluated nuclear energy, as have many people.
Yeah.
And some now believe that maybe nuclear energy is something we should consider because it's, as long as there isn't an accident, which is a problem, it's pretty green.
Well, that's, you know, if you're looking at the larger picture of climate change, it's hard to figure out how we will get to where we want to be in terms of reducing greenhouse gas emissions and being able to still power the future without nuclear energy. I mean, and I think there's a lot of people who've come to that conclusion or are understanding that. I mean, in our county, we have utility scale solar plants, as you know.
Right.
And if you go out to Carrizo Plains right now, you'll see 10 miles of photovoltaic panels, which is an enormous thing to see. And the energy created by that 10 miles still doesn't equal even one reactor. And that reactor runs 24 hours a day, whereas the solar panels, you know, are at their height, maybe 4 hours of solarity, and then it starts to drop a bit. And then, of course, not much at all for most of the rest of the day. So you can't get to where, I know a lot of people would love us just to be on renewables, and I don't know anybody who wouldn't, but that's not where we're at now.
But when you consider Diablo, it's hard to deny that there are some folks that are a little nervous about its location.
Yeah.
It is on the beautiful Central Coast, but there are some faults literally right off the coast of Diablo Canyon. And there are faults that were known, there are faults that were just discovered, there are faults that we may discover. And so when we consider what happened in Japan with the Fukushima Sendai earthquake, where they had, did they have a meltdown? I mean, I think they had
a meltdown.
Yeah. I mean, that's caused some shockwaves.
Yeah. Well, I mean, certainly, I would say the two greatest issues of concern that everybody should have, and certainly here locally they do, is the seismic. You know, this is a seismically active area, particularly where the plant's located. And if they were siting it today, would they put it there? Probably not.
Right.
That said, you know, the way it's been constructed and designed and the way it's located, it's much higher above sea level than the Fukushima location. I would say that everything I've learned from the post-Fukushima information that's come out from the NRC and from, you know, all of the plant operators had to spend some time also visiting Japan, and there's sort of a gathering of information, lessons learned. We certainly have a different culture in this country, I think much safer than the Japanese did.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I believe that our plants are operated differently and safer than they were.
Yet a couple of years ago, there had been a move to further study the safety of Diablo and look at some of the faults and plates in the ocean off of the plant. Ultimately, the California Coastal Commission denied that request for additional study, citing concerns for sea life and otherwise. So are you concerned that we don't know what we don't know?
The good news is a fair amount of work was done with it. What was denied ultimately was the deep sea imaging that would have required, the charges being made down. Basically, they drop sort of explosive things to be able to mirror the activity of the faults. And the concern that was raised by a lot of people was that it was going to have some impact on sea life, and therefore the Coastal Commission denied it. That said, a lot of a lot of studies had been done anyway. There's a fair amount of information that's being looked at right now by the independent peer review panel, which my colleague Bruce Gibson's on.
Who is a seismologist, I believe.
Right.
Or geologist, or whatever.
Yeah, right. And we know that our former state senator is also has been engaged in that. So there certainly are some local folks that have the technical knowledge to be able to offer opinions on the studies that exist. So I think all said and done, there's enough information that's been collected for the, and we don't make the decision. It's a decision made by the feds. I think there's been enough information collected that the Nuclear Regulatory Commission can make a decision about the future of the plant, and the people here can feel good about that.
Now the operator, PG&E, is going to apply for relicensing, I believe, this year, 2015.
That's what we believe.
Even though their license is not coming up for several years.
2021 and 2022.
Right. So a few years off.
Right.
Do you believe the application is ripe? Is it time?
Well, they did want to, they were in the process of going forward, 4 years ago.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's right.
It does. It's a lengthy process, and there's many things that they have to do, and there's other agencies. The ultimate decision will be made by the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, but the Coastal Commission will have a say.
Does the county have any
say? The county has some say on the coastal development permit too, and that's something that we'll have to probably coordinate with Coastal. The State Water Board has issued some guidelines about once-through cooling that will make it difficult for the plant to come up with something to do something differently. So I think there's going to have to be some kind of solution there.
I mentioned the owner, PG&E, and in San Luis Obispo County, as I understand it, PG&E is considered a pretty fine corporate citizen.
Yeah.
If you went to the Bay Area, maybe they would argue differently.
Right.
We know about the San Bruno disaster, and we also know that PG&E was slapped pretty hard for what happened at San Bruno. That was not a nuclear incident, but does it cause you pause that outside of the Diablo context, PG&E was lambasted pretty severely for what happened in the Bay Area?
Right. Well, it's a tragedy. I mean, an entire neighborhood, the gas explosion in San Bruno, and many people, their homes are blown up and lives were lost. We are somewhat insulated from it because, as you mentioned, PG&E is such an important player in our community in terms of jobs, in terms of their involvement with nonprofits.
But when you look at some of the emails that were released, some of the documents, it just, look, I haven't read them all, but anecdotally, one could argue they may not have been the best corporate citizen in the San Francisco Bay Area incident. So if they're not a great corporate citizen, 200 miles up the road, imagine what could happen if
I would never downplay what happened in San Bruno, of course, and I can't imagine that they would either.
But
it is an interesting distinction because we can talk to some of our colleagues in other places where they really don't like PG&E.
Right.
Whereas here it is, it's such an important part of the community that it just that hasn't. I don't think it's resonated.
Like, do you need to have a heart-to-heart with PG&E and say, look, I'm your supervisor.
Yeah.
I mean, arguably the most important political position, in dealing with this scenario. Help me out. Can we count on you?
Yeah, we've had those conversations. I mean, they have been fairly accessible to me, from their chairman of the board to their president of utilities to the chief nuclear officer here. I've never had a problem being able to talk with them. So that's been good. That's been reassuring. And I've never heard them express anything less than disappointment about the way things have been handled.
Have you taken a public position on whether you want the application for relicensing to be approved?
No, I haven't taken a public position, but my feeling is if the NRC deems it safe, then I think that's what should happen.
His name is Adam Hill. He's a member of the Board of Supervisors in beautiful San Luis Obispo County. My name is Brad Pomerance, and you are watching California Edition.